Commander Jake Morrison stood at the main window of the orbital defense station watching the dark space around Earth when the first silver ship appeared. Then another ship came through the strange blue light that had opened in space, then 10 more ships. Then 50 more. Jake counted 300 enemy ships before he stopped counting and reached for the emergency button on his control panel. Alien ships were huge and beautiful in a cold way that made Jake think of ice and metal. Each ship was twice as large as anything humans had ever built, and they moved through space like they owned it. The silver metal of their hulls reflected the light from Earth's sun, making them shine like stars that had come to. Close to home, Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through the speaker system from the command ship far below on Earth's surface. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the fear underneath it. The aliens were sending a message, and it was coming through on all frequencies at once. Every radio and television and computer on Earth was receiving the same transmission at the same time. The alien voice spoke perfect English, but it sounded wrong somehow, like a machine trying to copy human speech. The message was simple and terrible. Earth had been chosen for colonization by the Zephyrian Empire. All humans had exactly 72 hours to leave their planet and find somewhere else to live. If humans were still on Earth after 72 hours, the Zephyrian fleet would destroy every living thing on the planet. Jake felt his hands shake as he listened to the message repeat 3 times. The alien voice explained that this was not a negotiation or a war declaration. It was simply information. Humans could leave and live somewhere else, or they could stay and die. The choice was theirs, but the result would be the same. Earth would belong to the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Ryan Brooks was working in his laboratory on the moon when he received the same message. Ryan had spent his whole life studying the possibility of alien contact, and now that it had finally happened, he wished it never had. He looked at the data coming from the deep space sensors and felt sick. The alien ships were using technology that was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans had developed. The energy readings from the alien fleet showed power sources that could destroy entire continents with single shots. Their shields were strong enough to stop nuclear weapons, and their engines could move them faster than light itself. Ryan had always believed that if aliens ever came to Earth, they would be friendly explorers looking for new friends among the stars. He had been wrong. President Helen Martinez was in an emergency meeting with the world's military leaders when the message arrived. The room fell silent as everyone listened to the alien ultimatum. General Peter Davis was the first to speak. After the message ended, he said that humanity's entire military could not stop even one of those alien ships, let alone 300 of them. Director Amy White from the Secret Research Department looked pale as she opened her classified files. She told the room about the weapons programs that had been hidden from the public for decades, nuclear bombs that could crack mountains, laser weapons that could cut through steel like paper, missiles that could travel halfway around the world in minutes. None of it would matter against technology this advanced. The news spread across Earth faster than anything in human history. Tom Bennett stood in front of television cameras trying to explain to 7 billion people that their world was about to end. In New York and London and Tokyo, people looked up at the night sky and saw the alien ships hanging there like metal clouds. Some people panicked and ran. Others prayed. Many just stood still and watched the sky, but in secret places around the world, different kinds of meetings were happening. In underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, people were not talking about surrender or evacuation. They were talking about war. Scientists pulled out research files that had been locked away for years. Military officers opened safes that contained plans no one hoped would ever be needed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked in a laboratory so deep underground that most people in the government did not know it existed. She looked at the weapons her team had been building for the past 10 years and smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. The Zephyrians thought they knew everything about human technology because they had been watching Earth for months. They had seen the ships and planes and weapons that humans used in public. What the aliens had not seen were the secret weapons that broke the laws of physics. Bombs that could phase through solid matter. Energy weapons that could disrupt molecular bonds. Stealth technology that made objects invisible to any kind of sensor. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they had only observed the technology humans wanted them to see. Colonel Marcus Taylor received encrypted messages from military units around the world. Hidden bases that were not on any official map reported ready status. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites powered up their targeting systems. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for a war that might never come checked their equipment one final time. The 72-hour countdown had begun, but humanity was not spending that time running away. They were spending it getting ready to fight. The aliens had made their biggest mistake when they told humans exactly when the attack would begin. They had given Earth time to prepare, and humans had always been very good at preparing for war. Jake Morrison looked out at the alien fleet one more time, then walked to his weapons control station. In 71 hours and 30 minutes he would find out if humanity deserved to keep their world. The aliens wanted Earth, but they were about to learn that humans had never given up anything without a fight. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had not slept in 36 hours, but her hands were steady as she worked on the quantum disruption warhead in the underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains. The weapon looked like a silver ball no larger than a basketball, but it contained enough power to phase shift matter at the molecular level. Elena had been working on Project Blackout for 10 years, waiting for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Laboratory was buried 3 miles underground and hidden behind fake mining operations that had been running for decades. The government had spent more money on this one facility than most countries spent on their entire military. Elena's team had built weapons that violated every treaty humans had ever signed about warfare in space, but they had built them anyway because someone had to think about the worst possibilities. Colonel Marcus Taylor stood in a different kind of underground facility looking at displays that showed military positions across the entire solar system. What looked like old space junk and broken satellites were actually weapons platforms that had been hidden in orbit for 20 years. Automated systems that could think and fight and kill without any human controlling them directly. Marcus had spent his career preparing for asymmetric warfare against a superior enemy. The aliens expected humans to fight like civilized beings, following rules and using predictable tactics. They expected large ships shooting at other large ships in organized battle formations. They had studied human military history, but they had only looked at the wars where humans fought other humans using conventional methods. What the aliens had not learned about was how humans fought when they were desperate and defending their homes. They had not studied the small wars where humans used every dirty trick and hidden weapon and surprise attack they could think of. The Zephyrians were about to get an education in human creativity when it came to killing things that threatened their families. Captain Julia Adams flew her ship through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, checking on weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment. The Shadowhawk was humanity's most advanced stealth ship built with technology that had been reverse engineered from alien probes that had been secretly captured over the past 5 years. Julia's ship was invisible to almost every kind of sensor that existed. The hull was made of materials that absorbed radar and heat signatures and electromagnetic waves. The engine produced no visible exhaust and made no sound even in atmosphere. Julia could fly within a few hundred meters of an alien ship, and they would never know she was there. Her mission was to plant quantum mines throughout the alien fleet formation while they waited for the 72-hour deadline to expire. Mines were no bigger than dinner plates, and they would attach themselves to alien hull metal using molecular bonding technology. When the time came to activate them, they would create small tears in space-time that would let the quantum warheads phase through alien shields as if the shields were not even there. Aliens had made their biggest mistake when they gave humans 3 days to prepare. 72 hours was enough time for Julia to visit every single ship in their fleet and plant explosives on each one. The Zephyrians were sitting in what they thought was a secure formation, but they were actually sitting in the middle of the largest minefield. Humans had ever created. General Patricia Johnson activated the Prometheus protocol from a command bunker that was built inside a mountain in Colorado. The protocol was humanity's most desperate plan for fighting an enemy that was superior in every possible way. It was based on the idea that humans could win by doing things that no sane species would ever consider doing. The aliens had studied human psychology and decided that humans were inferior because they were emotional and unstable and prone to violence. What the aliens had not understood was that these weaknesses could become strengths in the right situation. Humans could make decisions that seemed completely insane but actually worked because the enemy could not predict them. Patricia looked at the files that contained backup plans for backup plans, weapons that would kill the people using them, tactics that involved sacrificing entire fleets to accomplish small objectives, strategies that assumed humans would lose every battle but still find ways to win the war. The aliens thought like logical beings who wanted to minimize losses and maximize gains. Humans could think like logical beings too, but they could also think like cornered animals who would chew off their own legs to escape a trap. The Prometheus protocol was designed to turn human desperation into a weapon that could defeat superior technology through sheer unpredictability and willingness to accept casualties that would horrify any civilized species. Dr. James Parker worked in a biology laboratory studying tissue samples that had been taken from alien probes over the years. The Zephyrians had better technology than humans, but they still had to follow the laws of biology and physics. James had found their weaknesses and he had designed weapons specifically to exploit them. Aliens had enhanced senses that gave them advantages in most situations, but those same enhanced senses could be turned against them. Sonic weapons tuned to specific frequencies could disrupt their nervous systems and cause paralysis or disorientation. Light weapons that flashed in certain patterns could trigger seizures in their brain structures. Chemical weapons that would be harmless to humans could be deadly poison to aliens with different biochemistry. Biological weapons designed to attack their immune systems could spread through their ships faster than they could be stopped. James had created an entire arsenal of species-specific weapons that would only work against Zephyrians. Captain Kevin Wright sat in his fighter craft on the deck of a carrier ship that was hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. Kevin's squadron had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. They would fly directly into the alien formation and attack their command ships, using prototype kamikaze drives that could punch through energy shields but would destroy the attacking ship in the process. Kevin was 25 years old, and he had a wife and 2 children waiting for him back on Earth. He had written letters to them explaining why he had chosen to volunteer for a mission that had no chance of survival. He wanted his children to grow up on a world where humans decided their own future instead of being slaves to alien masters. Kamikaze drives were fusion bombs that had been modified to create directed explosions that could penetrate any known type of defensive shielding. The fighter craft would accelerate to maximum speed, then detonate their drives at the moment of impact with enemy ships. The explosion would destroy both the fighter and whatever had hit. Kevin's squadron was not the only group that had volunteered for suicide missions. All across the solar system, humans were preparing to sacrifice themselves in ways that would give their species a chance to survive. The aliens had offered humanity the choice between evacuation and extinction, but humans had decided to create a third option. Countdown showed 48 hours remaining until the alien deadline expired. In those 48 hours, humanity would either prove that they deserved to keep their world or they would die trying. The aliens wanted Earth, but they were about to learn that humans had never been conquered by anyone, and they were not planning to start now. The 72-hour deadline expired at exactly noon Earth Standard Time, but the Zephyrian fleet did not attack immediately. They waited for another hour as if giving humans one final chance to surrender and leave their world. The alien commander sent one last message asking if humanity had reconsidered its decision to stay and fight. Admiral Lisa Carter's response was broadcast on every frequency humans could access. Lisa's message was short and simple. Humanity rejected the alien ultimatum and would defend Earth with everything they had. She told the Zephyrian commander that humans had never surrendered their homeworld to anyone, and they were not going to start now. The transmission ended with Lisa saying that if the aliens wanted Earth, they would have to take it from humanity's. Dead Hands Captain Kevin Wright received the attack signal 30 seconds after Lisa's message ended. Kevin's fighter squadron launched from their hidden carrier behind Jupiter's largest moon and began their flight toward the alien formation. The trip would take them 6 hours at maximum speed, but the aliens would not detect them until they were almost close enough to attack. Kevin looked at the picture of his family that was taped to his instrument panel and whispered goodbye to his wife and children. He had accepted that he would never see them again, but he hoped his sacrifice would give them a chance to grow up free. The kamikaze drives in his fighter were armed and ready to detonate on his command. The alien fleet began moving toward Earth, expecting to face the kind of resistance they had encountered on the 47 other worlds they had conquered. Large ships fighting other large ships in predictable patterns, using conventional weapons that could be stopped by their advanced shields. The Zephyrian commander was confident that the battle would be over within a few hours. Admiral Susan Clark commanded the human fleet from the battleship New Defiance as it emerged from hiding behind Earth's moon. The human ships looked tiny compared to the alien vessels, but they moved with purpose and determination that surprised the Zephyrian observers. The aliens had expected humans to either run away or surrender when they saw how outmatched they were. Susan's ships accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation in what appeared to be a suicide charge. The Zephyrian commander ordered his ships to prepare for battle while wondering why humans would choose such an obviously hopeless strategy. He decided that humans were even more primitive than his intelligence reports had suggested. The first shots of the battle were fired when the human fleet came within range of alien weapons. Energy beams that could destroy mountains struck the human ships and should have vaporized them instantly. Instead, the beams seemed to pass through the human ships without causing any damage at all. The alien gunners fired again with the same result. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from her underground laboratory as her quantum disruption technology worked exactly as designed. The human ships had been equipped with phase-shifting devices that could temporarily move them out of normal space-time. Alien weapons could not damage targets that existed in a different dimension, even if only for a few seconds at a time. The Zephyrian fleet tried every weapon they had, but none of them could hit targets that kept phasing in and out of reality. The human ships continued their charge while alien commanders tried to understand what was happening. Their technology could detect the human ships, but their weapons could not lock onto them. Wright's fighter squadron reached the alien formation just as the main battle began. Kevin saw the massive alien ships trying to hit Admiral Clark's fleet and failing because their targets kept disappearing and reappearing in different locations. Kevin smiled as he realized that humanity's secret weapons were working better than anyone had dared to hope. Kevin selected the largest alien ship in the formation and armed his kamikaze drive. His fighter accelerated to maximum speed as he flew directly toward the enemy command vessel. The alien ship's defensive systems tried to stop him, but their weapons passed through his fighter just like they had passed through Admiral Clark's ships, the kamikaze drive detonated at the moment Kevin's fighter touched the alien hull. The directed fusion explosion punched through the enemy ship's shields as if they were made of paper and tore a hole the size of a city block in the alien vessel. Kevin died instantly, but his sacrifice had crippled the enemy flagship 11. More fighters from Kevin's squadron completed their own kamikaze attacks in the next 30 seconds. 12 alien ships were heavily damaged or destroyed before the Zephyrian commander understood what was happening. The human ships were using some kind of technology that made them immune to energy weapons. Captain Julia Adams activated the quantum mines she had planted on alien ships during the previous 3 days. The mines phased through alien hulls and detonated inside the enemy vessels where their shields could not protect them. Explosions began occurring throughout the Zephyrian fleet as mines that had been invisible to alien sensors revealed themselves. Alien formation began to break apart as ships tried to escape the minefield they had not known they were sitting in. Some ships succeeded in moving away from the mines, but others were not fast enough. Julia counted 43 alien vessels that were destroyed or disabled by mines that had been planted right under their noses. Dr. James Parker's biological weapons began affecting alien crew members who were trying to repair damage to their ships. The weapons had been designed to spread through alien life support systems and attack Zephyrian physiology specifically. Aliens who breathed the contaminated air began experiencing paralysis and disorientation that made it impossible for them to fight effectively. Sonic weapons activated next, filling the space around alien ships with frequencies that disrupted Zephyrian nervous systems through their hull metal. Alien crew members collapsed at their stations as sound waves that were harmless to humans caused their enhanced senses to overload and shut down. Admiral Clark's fleet pressed their attack while the aliens struggled to understand what was happening. To them, human ships that should have been destroyed in the first few minutes of battle were still fighting and causing damage that seemed impossible with primitive human technology. The Zephyrian commander sent desperate messages to his subordinates, asking for explanations. The alien fleet had been reduced from 300 ships to less than 200 in the first hour of combat. The survivors were scattered and confused, and many of them were operating with reduced crews due to the biological weapons that were spreading through their life support systems. Colonel Marcus Taylor activated the hidden weapons platforms that had been disguised as space debris throughout the solar system. Automated defense systems that had been waiting decades for this moment began targeting alien ships with weapons that violated every treaty about warfare in space. The platforms used artificial intelligence systems that had been programmed with the combat experience of humanity's greatest military minds. They could think and adapt and learn from each engagement. The alien pilots found themselves fighting opponents that seemed to predict their moves and counter their tactics before they could implement them. The first phase of the battle ended with humanity achieving something that no other species had ever accomplished against the Zephyrian Empire. They had not only survived the initial alien attack, but had inflicted significant casualties on an enemy that had conquered 47 worlds without ever experiencing a serious defeat. The Zephyrian commander looked at his tactical displays and tried to understand how primitive humans had destroyed a third of his fleet in a single engagement. His intelligence reports had been completely wrong about human capabilities, and now he was facing an enemy that fought with weapons and tactics he had never encountered before. The battle was far from over, but humanity had drawn first blood and proven that the Zephyrian Empire was not invincible. The aliens had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but instead they had found predators who had been waiting their entire evolutionary history for this exact moment. Fleet Admiral Chris Edwards had been waiting in the command center on Mars for 6 hours watching the battle around Earth when he finally gave the order that would reveal humanity's greatest secret: the hidden weapons platforms throughout the TLP. Solar System received his activation signal and began powering up systems that had been dormant for 20 years. What the Zephyrian fleet had dismissed as old mining equipment and communication satellites suddenly revealed themselves as heavily armed battle stations. Each platform contained enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and they had been positioned at calculated points that would create overlapping fields of fire throughout the inner solar system. The alien ships that had been trying to retreat from the battle around Earth found themselves flying directly into a trap that had been decades in the making. Every escape route they could take led them toward hidden weapons that had been waiting patiently for targets to enter their range. Admiral Edward smiled as he watched the tactical display show hundreds of red dots representing alien ships moving into positions where they could be destroyed. Humanity had spent enormous amounts of money and resources creating this kill zone, but it was about to prove that every dollar had been worth spending. The Zephyrian commander realized what was happening when his ships began reporting weapons locks from sources that were not supposed to exist. His retreat formation was being targeted by automated systems that had appeared from nowhere and were tracking his vessels with impossible accuracy. First weapons platform opened fire with energy beams that were more powerful than anything the aliens had seen humans use before. The beam cut through an alien cruiser like it was made of paper and continued on to damage two more ships that were flying in formation behind it. More platforms activated every few seconds as the alien fleet moved deeper into the trap. The automated systems had been programmed to fire in sequence so that each salvo would drive the aliens toward the next group of hidden weapons. It was like watching animals being herded toward slaughter. Captain Michelle Turner commanded the assault carrier Freedom's Edge as it launched wave after wave of automated fighters from its position near Jupiter. The fighters were not piloted by humans but by artificial intelligence systems that had been loaded with the combat experience of every pescarians of every great military leader in human history. The AI fighters moved with coordination that no living pilot could match. They flew in perfect formation and executed maneuvers that would have killed human pilots due to acceleration forces. Each fighter was programmed to sacrifice itself if necessary to complete its mission, and they attacked alien ships with mechanical precision that was terrifying to watch. The alien pilots who had survived the initial battle around Earth now found themselves fighting opponents that seemed to know their tactics before they used them. The AI systems analyzed alien flight patterns in real time and adapted their strategies to counter every move the Zephyrians made. Dr. James Parker watched from his laboratory as his biological weapons spread through the alien fleet faster than anticipated. The weapons had been designed to attack Zephyrian physiology, but they were proving even more effective than computer models had predicted. Entire alien ships were becoming uninhabitable as their life support systems became contaminated. Sonic weapons were having similar effects as they filled space around alien vessels with frequencies that caused Zephyrian nervous systems to malfunction. Alien crew members were collapsing at their stations, and many ships were operating at reduced efficiency because their crews could not function properly. Some alien ships tried to escape the inner solar system by flying toward the outer planets, but they found more weapons platforms waiting for them there. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this battle, and they had considered every possible scenario, including alien attempts to retreat. The automated defense systems began communicating with each other and coordinating their attacks in ways that the aliens could not predict or counter. The AI systems were learning from each engagement and sharing that knowledge instantly with all other platforms in the network. Colonel Marcus Taylor watched from his command bunker as the trap reached its full potential. The alien fleet was completely surrounded, and every ship was taking damage from multiple sources. The Zephyrians had superior technology, but they were outnumbered by automated systems that never got tired or confused or afraid. The aliens tried to break through the encirclement by concentrating their remaining ships into a single formation and attacking one section of the defensive perimeter. They managed to destroy several weapons platforms, but more platforms moved to fill the gaps, and the concentrated alien formation made an easier target for the automated systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez activated the final phase of her quantum weapons. As the alien fleet became desperate, the phase-shifting mines that Captain Julia Adams had planted on enemy ships 3 days earlier were joined by new weapons that could phase through space-time and attack targets from impossible angles. The aliens found themselves being shot by weapons that fired from directions that should not have existed. Energy beams emerged from empty space and struck alien ships from above and below and inside their own defensive formations. The Zephyrians tried to return fire, but there were no targets to shoot at. Admiral Edwards ordered the human fleet to press their attack while the aliens were confused and disoriented. Human ships that had been hiding throughout the solar system emerged from concealment and began attacking the alien formation from every direction at once. Battle became a massacre as automated systems and human crews worked together to destroy an enemy that had underestimated their capabilities. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to fight primitive beings with inferior technology, but instead they were fighting the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The Zephyrian commander sent desperate transmissions to his homeworld, warning them that the humans were not what they appeared to be. He tried to explain that humanity possessed weapons and tactics that made no logical sense and fought with a desperation that made them unpredictable and extremely dangerous, but the alien homeworld was hundreds of light years away and even faster than light. Communication would take months to reach them. The battle would be decided long before reinforcements could arrive, and the commander knew that his fleet was facing annihilation. The trap that humanity had spent decades building was working perfectly. Every alien ship was taking damage, and their formation was breaking apart as individual vessels tried to escape in different directions. But there was nowhere to run because humans had anticipated every possible escape route. The automated weapons platforms continued firing with mechanical precision while human crews pressed their attacks with emotional intensity that the aliens could not understand. The combination of artificial intelligence and human creativity was proving unstoppable against enemies who fought according to logical patterns. Admiral Edwards looked at his tactical display and realized that humanity was about to achieve something unprecedented in galactic history. They were going to completely destroy an invasion fleet that had conquered 47 other worlds without ever experiencing a serious defeat. Aliens had wanted Earth, but they were learning that humans did not give up their possessions easily. The galaxy's newest apex predators were showing why they had remained undefeated on their homeworld for millions of years. Captain Rachel Foster received her hunting orders when the surviving alien ships began their desperate retreat toward the outer edge of the solar system. Her pursuit squadron had been waiting beyond Neptune's orbit for this exact moment when broken enemy formations would try to escape into deep space. Rachel's ships were built for speed and endurance rather than heavy combat. They carried just enough weapons to disable fleeing vessels, but their main purpose was to hunt down survivors and make sure none of them reached safety. Humanity had decided that no alien ship would leave the solar system alive to report what had happened here. Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to fewer than 50 operational vessels, and most of those were damaged and operating with reduced crews. The aliens who had arrived with overwhelming confidence were now running for their lives from an enemy they had completely underestimated. Rachel's squadron used their superior knowledge of local space to intercept fleeing aliens in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The broken rocks and metal debris provided perfect cover for ambush tactics that the aliens could not counter. Human ships would emerge from hiding behind asteroids and attack before disappearing again. The alien survivors were learning what it meant to be hunted by predators who knew every hiding place and secret route in their own territory. Human pilots had grown up navigating through asteroid fields and gas giant rings that would have been impossible obstacles for species from other star systems. Dr. Angela Morris began the psychological warfare campaign from her facility on Luna, where she had spent years studying alien psychology and developing methods to break enemy morale. Her transmissions were broadcast directly to the surviving alien ships using frequencies that would penetrate their hull. Shielding the broadcasts contained human cultural materials that had been specifically chosen to disturb Zephyrian minds. War songs that celebrated violence and death. Battle cries that had been used by human warriors for thousands of years. Recordings of human soldiers in combat that revealed the species' capacity for controlled brutality and willingness to die. For their beliefs, Angela had studied the alien psychology reports and learned that Zephyrians prided themselves on logical thinking and emotional control. They considered themselves superior to species that were driven by passion and instinct. The human broadcasts were designed to show them exactly what they were fighting against. The recordings included humans laughing while they killed enemies in battle, soldiers singing while they charged into hopeless situations, warriors who continued fighting even after receiving mortal wounds. The aliens heard the voices of creatures who treated warfare as an art form and death as an acceptable outcome. Psychological effects were immediate as alien crew members began experiencing panic reactions that their species had not felt for thousands of years. The Zephyrians had conquered so many worlds without serious resistance that they had forgotten what fear felt. Like General William Hayes coordinated the ground assault against alien landing parties that had managed to reach Earth's surface before the retreat began. The aliens had expected to occupy human cities without resistance, but instead they found themselves fighting in urban terrain that had been prepared for exactly this kind of invasion. Every street had been turned into a killing zone with hidden weapons and improvised explosives. Every building was a potential fortress filled with human defenders who knew the terrain perfectly. The aliens found themselves fighting house to house against enemies who appeared and disappeared like ghost human. Civilians had been evacuated from the combat zones, but many had refused to leave and joined the fighting alongside military units. Children who were barely old enough to hold weapons stood beside their parents firing at alien soldiers. Elderly humans who could barely walk used their knowledge of the city to guide military units to alien positions. The alien ground forces had been trained to fight conventional battles against organized military units using predictable tactics. They had no experience with urban warfare where every civilian was a potential combatant and every building could hide and ambush. The humans fought with a desperation that shocked the alien commanders. Human soldiers would continue fighting even when they were outnumbered 10-1. They would use improvised weapons and suicide attacks and tactics that no civilized species would consider acceptable. Human families defended their homes with whatever weapons they could find. Kitchen knives and garden tools and homemade explosives were used alongside military equipment. The aliens realized they were not fighting soldiers but an entire species that had turned warfare into a way of life. The battle for every city block became a nightmare for alien forces who had expected humans to surrender when faced with superior technology. Instead, they found enemies who treated every room as a fortress and every hallway as a battlefield. Commander Lisa Thompson led the final assault on the Zephyrian flagship that had been crippled in the initial battle but was still trying to coordinate the alien retreat. Her boarding party used modified atmospheric suits to survive in the toxic environment of the alien ship. Lisa's team moved through the alien corridors using combat techniques that had been perfected during thousands of years of human warfare. They advanced by sections, providing cover fire for each other and clearing every room. Systematically, the alien crew members they encountered were demoralized. and many had been affected by the biological weapons that were still spreading through their life support systems. The humans moved through the ship like a plague, destroying everything in their path. Lisa reached the alien command center where the Zephyrian High Commander was trying to organize the retreat of his surviving ships. The alien leader looked at the human warrior who had invaded his flagship and finally understood the magnitude of his species. The High Commander had studied the reports about human military capabilities and had dismissed them as primitive and ineffective. He had believed that superior technology would guarantee victory over any species that was bound to a single planet, but the creature standing before him with weapons drawn represented something the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before. A species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things that threatened their survival. Alien Commander realized that his fleet had not found a primitive world to conquer, but had instead awakened predators who had been waiting for exactly this kind of challenge. The humans had not been trapped on Earth by their limited technology. The galaxy had been protected from humans by their isolation. Lisa Thompson looked at the defeated alien commander and delivered humanity's final message. Earth was not available for colonization, and any species that threatened humanity in the future would face the same fate as the Zephyrian invasion fleet. The few alien ships that remained operational were allowed to escape the solar system, but only after their weapons and faster-than-light drives had been destroyed. They would drift through space for years before reaching another star system, and when they finally arrived, they would carry news of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Survivors would tell other species that the galaxy had gained new apex predators and that the age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had proven that they were not prey animals waiting to be harvested, but hunters who had been temporarily contained to a single world. The battle for Earth ended when the last functional Zephyrian ship was destroyed in the asteroid belt by Captain Rachel Foster's pursuit squadron. Admiral Robert Collins stood on the bridge of his command ship looking at the tactical display. That showed the complete annihilation of an invasion fleet that had conquered 47 worlds in the past century. Only 12 alien vessels had been allowed to escape, and those ships had been deliberately crippled so they could not pose any future threat. Their weapons had been removed and their faster-than-light drives had been damaged beyond repair. The survivors would drift through space for decades before reaching another star system. Collins had personally delivered humanity's message to the fleeing aliens before they were released. The message was simple and direct. Earth belonged to humanity and would never be available for colonization by any alien species. Any future threats to human territory would result in the complete destruction of the attacking force. President Helen Martinez addressed the United Nations from the emergency session chamber that had been built deep underground during the crisis. She announced to the world that humanity had successfully defended their homeworld against the most powerful military force in known galactic history. Martinez explained that the victory had been possible because humanity had spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of threat. Secret weapons programs and hidden military installations had been funded by every major nation working together toward a common goal of planetary defense. The president revealed that humanity possessed technology and weapons that were far more advanced than anything they had shown to the public. The defensive systems that had destroyed the alien fleet were only a small portion of humanity's actual military capabilities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez emerged from her underground laboratory for the first time in months to address the global scientific community about the weapons that had made victory possible. She explained that quantum physics and molecular engineering had allowed humanity to develop defenses against any known form of attack. Elena's team began the process of reverse engineering captured alien technology, but with modifications that reflected human approaches to warfare. Where other species had used these advances for exploration and peaceful development, humanity immediately began developing new weapons and defensive systems. The Alien technology was impressive, but it had been designed by species that thought in terms of conquest and occupation rather than complete annihilation. Human engineers looked at the same technology and saw ways to make it more destructive and harder to defend against. Captain Julia Adams led humanity's first interstellar expeditions, using ships that had been built with a combination of human and alien technology. The new vessels were faster and more powerful than anything either species had. Built separately, Julia's mission was not conquest but reconnaissance. Humanity needed to learn about other alien civilizations and their military capabilities before deciding how to interact with them. The galaxy had shown that it contained species willing to use violence to take what they wanted. Other alien civilizations received reports about the destruction of the Zephyrian invasion fleet within months of the battle. The news spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected because it represented something unprecedented in recorded history. A primitive species confined to a single world had completely destroyed the military force of a galactic empire. The implications were terrifying for species that had grown comfortable with the existing balance of power in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire itself went into panic mode when they received detailed reports from the few survivors who eventually reached their territory. The High Council had never experienced a military defeat of this magnitude, and they immediately declared the human solar system to be forbidden territory. All Zephyrian ships were ordered to avoid any contact with humanity, and their star charts were updated to show Earth's system as extremely dangerous. The empire that had conquered nearly 50 worlds in the past century was now afraid of creatures they had previously dismissed as barely civilized animals. Other species began reassessing their own military capabilities and territorial ambitions. If the mighty Zephyrian Empire could be defeated by humans, then no species in the galaxy was truly safe from potential threats. Galactic Trade Federation sent diplomatic missions toward Earth but kept their ships far outside the solar system while attempting to establish communication. They wanted to negotiate trade agreements and peaceful contact, but they were terrified of provoking humanity into hostile action. Federation representatives had studied the battle reports and realized that humans had deliberately allowed some aliens to escape so they could spread news of what had happened. This suggested that humanity wanted other species to know about their military capabilities. Dr. James Parker published his research on xenobiology and alien physiology in scientific journals that were distributed throughout human space. His work on species-specific weapons had proven devastatingly effective against the Zephyrians and would serve as the foundation for developing defenses against other potential threats. Parker's biological weapons had been designed to attack alien immune systems and nervous structures in ways that would be harmless to humans. The research showed that humanity could develop targeted weapons against any species they encountered. The psychological warfare techniques developed by Dr. Angela Morris became standard training for all human military units. Her work had proven that alien species could be demoralized and defeated through methods that exploited their specific mental weaknesses. Angela's broadcasts had broken Zephyrian morale by showing them recordings of human brutality and willingness to die in combat. Other species would require different approaches, but the principle of psychological warfare had been established as an effective weapon. Admiral Edwards was promoted to head of the new Galactic Defense Command and given unlimited resources to prepare humanity for future alien contact. His successful coordination of the hidden weapons platforms had saved Earth, but he knew that other threats would eventually emerge. Edwards began construction of new defense systems that would extend human military reach to neighboring star systems. Humanity would no longer wait passively for aliens to threaten them, but would actively patrol the space around Earth to detect potential enemies. Victory over the Zephyrian Empire had taught humanity that they were not alone in a hostile galaxy. and that peaceful coexistence might not be possible with all species. Some aliens would always see human territory as something to be conquered. Captain Michelle Turner was assigned to command the new automated fighter production facilities that were being built throughout the solar system. Her AI-controlled fighters had proven extremely effective against alien pilots and would become the backbone of humanity's expanding military. The automated systems could be mass-produced and deployed to any location where they might be needed. Human pilots would still be necessary for complex missions, but the AI fighters could handle routine patrol and defensive duties. General Patricia Johnson expanded the Prometheus protocol to include contingency plans for multiple simultaneous alien threats. Her work had shown that human desperation and willingness to accept casualties could be turned into strategic advantages against superior enemies. Galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. Humanity had not been trapped on Earth by primitive technology, but had been unconsciously protecting other species by remaining isolated on their homeworld. That protection was now gone, and the universe belonged to predators who had spent millions of years perfecting the art of warfare. The aliens had wanted Earth, but humanity had given them something else entirely. They had shown the galaxy what apex predators looked like when they decided to hunt among the stars.